and of course, a level of proof for us to move forward. First, a little bit about our unit. We're a small unit, and we're contained within the Department of Public Works in the Solid Waste Management Services Division. So we're a subunit of both of those entities. We're comprised of 5 officers with countywide jurisdiction. We have other responsibilities that include the illegal dumping, also surveillance camera program. We enforce solid waste set out violations, litter collection, and support for street sweeping parking. So we've got a lot on our plate, but this is we handle a lot of inspections a year, pretty close up to 5,000 when you consider all those things. But this is a chart that shows from I think it's July to May, so it's not a full year, and you can see that we've had 1,874 reports of illegal dumping. These are citizen complaints and not necessarily what actually is happening, but or the number of inspections that we make. The other 1,580 is those junk set out violations, but it's also garbage and yard waste violations. People putting yard waste in containers like plastic bags, or they're not bundling their material, or even they're putting garbage bags outside of their garbage cart, or they're not taking their cart in and they're leaving it out all the time. So it's minor things like that that are also part of what we do. And then the litter, as I said, we do litter pickups all across the city, and we try to do straightaways when we can. We usually use inmates, but we're not getting those right now due to COVID-19. And so we're a little bit slow on those right now, but this also includes a report a litterer thing that you can do through MetroCall. If you see somebody throwing litter out their window of their car, cigarette butt, McDonald's or whatever, you can actually call and report that. And what that does is sends us a notification. We'll look up their tag and cross-reference it against the information that you would give. And then we would send them basically a letter saying, hey, don't do that again, and a little litter bag that they can put it in instead of throwing it out their window. So we've been doing that a long time. So reporting dump sites, and this is going to be a little bit different than witnessing illegal dumping. This is when you see material that could be illegally dumped. The first thing is it really illegally dumped, or is this someone setting junk out at the improper time? It's very difficult to tell. It looks like the same material. Lots of times, if it shows up in the middle of the night, that's one indicator. Where it shows up, if it shows up on an abandoned property, if it shows up on a metro government property, a state property, or even a vacant lot of some sort, typically that is going to be illegal dumping. So you've got several options here, which is MetroCall 311. You put in that request. You can use their app or their website. It's important that you give the exact address as close as you can, or intersection. And if it's going to be an intersection, or if it's not visible easily, give us a little bit more direction as to where we can go. And then the more details, the better. Is it, what is it that was dumped? Is it tree debris? Is it garbage? Is it construction and demolition material? Give us as much information as you can. And it can even be that, hey, I know this stuff was on this property today, and then it's on this property the next day. So anything like that can help us, and we'll go out and do our investigation. Another thing that you should keep in mind is if you witness illegal dumping, we actually want to do this in a little bit different manner. And this is only if you see that person do it. You can go to this website, the local.ky.gov illegal dumping website, and you can input a report. During that report, you answer basic information, what's dumped and that type of thing. And then at the end, if you have any evidence, such as a video or images and stuff like that, you can upload it. Now, you can do this anonymously, and we're not going to be calling on you, but you can also do it by giving us your name and information and allowing us to call. That only makes it a whole lot easier for us to be able to get a good case against whoever did it. So you've made a report, and what happens then? Well, at that point, what we would do is we would take that complaint, we would go out, an officer would go out, a solid waste officer, not a police officer, would go out and take a look at it and see what they find. If they're going to be looking for mail, they're going to be looking for pizza boxes, even because they print addresses on the side of pizza boxes even. They're going to be looking for drag marks. So, we've gotten people because they drug their tree debris down the alley, and we was able to track it all the way back to where they cut down the tree. So anything that could help us determine that the material was illegally dumped, and who did it. We would also, if there was anybody that made the complaint and said that they could be contacted and they have information, we would go do a witness statement. So it's basically you're saying that, giving us information that we can use at the code board hearing as evidence that we can use to get the citation upheld or to even issue a citation. So at that point, what happens if we don't find any proof? Well, it tends to go back towards the illegal set out, and was it really an illegal dump case to begin with? And or it can be that we just can't find who's responsible for it, and we really don't have anything to go by. And in that case, we would send a letter to the property owner saying, hey, we tried, couldn't find anything. Unfortunately, it becomes your responsibility as a homeowner to remove debris. Can we sometimes remove the debris? Sometimes we can. It depends. We don't have exactly any crews that are out there waiting to go pick up illegal dumping. Most of those crews are out doing the junk pickup, and they're trying to get it all done in 1 week, so we don't have overtime. And when we call somebody off to go do something like that, it puts them behind. Sometimes they get done early, and we have that ability to send somebody out, but not all the time. Another time it can be as if it's a small item where either the officer can just pick it up and take it with them, or even if it can be sent to a litter crew, that the cleanup can be paid for through litter grant funds. Sometimes we can do it that way. So what happens when we catch someone? And we catch them quite often, not as often as we would like, obviously, but anything that we do, you got illegal dumping citations that are based upon evidence, such as mail and stuff, which that would lead to a $500 fine. And a crew would be dispatched to clean it up, and that person would have to pay a minimum of $250 cleanup fee, or it could involve even up to the possibility of doing an impoundment. And when we impound a vehicle, we basically have a whole lot more proof, and we can show that the material came out of a specific vehicle. At that point, we would, after we issue a citation, we would go to that location to find the vehicle. We would call LMPD to back us up, and they would go to the door with us just as for our safety, and we would talk to the person, and then we would have the LMPD tow lot come and get the vehicle. So that's a whole lot more, and usually people get a little bit upset when we're there to take their vehicle. But it's been extremely effective in combating illegal dumping. Lots of times people can ignore a civil citation, or they'll say, well, just go to a lien. I'll pay for it when I sell my house. But when we take somebody's vehicle, we take away their ability to be mobile and their ability to go illegally dump in some other places. I will say this, many of the vehicles that we impound never get recovered by the owner. The vehicle is usually older, not in all that great a shape. They don't want to come and pay all those fines and fees, so they'll just leave the vehicle in there. But at least we took away their ability to do it otherwise. Another thing that you would want to, if you're out there lending your vehicle to someone, it might be a good idea that you're very careful who you give that to. We have had people lend their vehicle to somebody that went and illegally dumped. And it came back on that person who owned the vehicle unless they can prove that they wasn't the one driving it. So make sure that if you're going to allow somebody to borrow your vehicle to haul stuff, that you're going to trust them and make sure that they're doing the right thing. So I'm going to go back a little bit into who cleans up the mess. And it's a pretty tough thing. And one of the things that we talked a little bit about is when we issue a citation, it's pretty clear cut. And we're going to charge that person who we cited. And that's what we want to do. That's our goal. We're not going to stop it unless we can. We have to make that impact. Now, not in all cases where we issue a citation can we do it. If the material is actually on private property where we can't reach it from the roadway or the alleyway, then we can't go onto that private property to clean it, and we won't be charging them a cleanup fee. In that case, you may be able to go after them to get them to pay for the cleanup. So that's one thing to keep in mind. If there isn't a citation, and again, this gets back into whether we have crews available, whether we can consider it litter, those types of things. Generally, it's going to fall back on the property owner to take care of it. It's unfortunate. We don't like it. It's similar to the fact that if someone was to graffiti your house or kick in your door and stuff like that, it's just not right. But it's not something that we can always handle. And some of the other things that you might see, you see a Louisville Metro crew out there picking stuff up, and you wonder, well, why are they picking that up if they can't pick up my stuff? Some of it is mandated because it's on Metro government property, and we have to do the same thing you do. We have to go clean it up. Otherwise, it becomes a whole lot more junk. And then there's also what's considered an open referral property. These are properties that are basically abandoned by the owner, or the owner's unable to be located, and they have an open citation against them. And a crew will go by, clean it up, and then it gets billed to that open citation. So that's considered an open referral property. So, catching the criminals, near and dear to our heart. That we use the department cameras more and more. We're using pictures and videos from citizens, and then scouting for vehicles caught on camera. Our officers are always looking for them. But here's a big thing: we need the community's help, and I think that sometimes that everybody kind of looks to us, but there are hundreds of miles of alleys, and we can't cover them all. We're not there 24 hours a day. We need the community's help. And one of the things that you can do when we talk about reporting the illegal dumping through that witnessed illegal dumping, you can go to our website and you can actually view images of people that we're looking for and people that we caught. So again, we need the community to help us out, be our eyes, and be looking for things. Sometimes we post who we're looking for on social media, Facebook or Nextdoor. And people are very helpful in that regard. It's been a great tool for us and something that we'll continue to do. Sometimes it's, you might think that, well, you can see the license plate right there. How come you can't go get them? Well, sometimes that license plate doesn't belong on that vehicle. These aren't the most scrupulous people that we're dealing with. And so we go there and they're not there. So we're basically looking for a vehicle or a person. So if you see it on social media, or if you see dumping on social media, don't hesitate to report it to us, and we'll all be all better off for it. So I do want to talk about the different types. And first, the department cameras. Right now, the department has about 28 surveillance cameras. These are basically trail cams on steroids, and they're very hard. They're very secure. They work pretty good. They're freestanding mobile. They're motion activated, and we want to locate them where we have hotspots. A hotspot is a place that tends to all of a sudden people start dumping there, and it becomes a free for all. We want to hit those hotspots first, so that's our highest priority. And so frequency of dumping is one of the biggest things that we look at when we're trying to locate where we want to place these things. What is frequency? How often does that mean? If you're getting hit, an alley is getting hit once every couple months, that's not very much. We have some places that get hit 2 to 3 times a week. That we have a whole lot better opportunity to catch them. And whenever we catch them, we get it advertised, and that cuts down on people illegal dumping because they get a little bit afraid to do it. Another thing that we need, and when we're trying to choose a location, is it needs to be in a place that has low traffic. We can't put it on a busy street, because what happens is when the camera triggers, it runs through a cycle and then it shuts off. And on a busy street, you can miss what's actually going on in that time where it's down before it reboots. It also cuts down on false triggers. A lot of people going by that aren't doing anything wrong. We want it to be where we're at. We need to conserve our battery so that it's there when we need it. Another thing is we need a clear line of sight to the hotspots. They can't, if we mount it, we need to be able to see the thing. If trees are in the way or something like that, it's an overgrown area. It's very difficult to find a good spot, and we need to be close. We need to be within 75 foot for that trigger, the motion sensor trigger, to work. Further out we get, the less reliable that is. And then the last thing is we need the ability to mount the camera either in a very, very covert location where it's not going to be seen, or it's going to be on a substantial pole that makes it to where it's very difficult to steal. Where they're just not very good on long roads where the dumping is intermittent. We have several of those locations in the county. So if you've got 3/4 of a mile, and one time they dump here, one time they dump there, one time they dump there, the chances of us putting that camera in the right spot for the next dump is pretty low. So it's not a great location for that. Sometimes it can be. Another thing that we can't do is put it where we're going to be pointing the camera into private property. We don't want to do that for privacy concerns, and sometimes that makes people mad, and then a camera can disappear. We also can't put them on private property, just due to the fact that we've done that once before. Due to circumstances, somebody didn't know it. It was on their private property. They got very upset about that, even though another person knew about it. So it's one of those things where we really can't put it on the private property. we can work with people sometimes, but it's not a good policy for us to do it. And of course, we can't do it on busy locations and roadways. Citizen cameras, and this is something that we're really pushing a whole lot, and we're getting more and more people doing it. It's best. Everybody's heard of the Ring cameras and stuff like that, but the home security systems are getting cheaper by the day. They're much easier to use. They're using wireless technology, and with the advent of a higher speed internet, it's making the ability to have these cameras a little bit further remote from your home base inside of your home computer. It's made it to where these cameras can be placed in a lot more locations. So we've had multiple people report through their home security system illegal dumping, and we have been able to cite and impound vehicles through that. Another option is the trail cam, and trail cams can be fairly inexpensive and do a really good job. The one thing I will tell you, the trail cams should be used where you can't put a regular security camera. And the biggest thing with these is that you want to make sure that they're covert, that where people can't see them, because they're unless you have the security enclosure and locks and setup that we have, they're easily stolen. So you definitely want to be very discreet with where you place those. Dummy cameras, they need to be realistic. I can't tell you how many times where we go to a place and where there's illegal dumping and they say, well, I got a dummy camera up here, and it's just not believable. And sometimes the way some of these dumpers are, they just really don't care, and they're going to do it anyway. But if you're going to use one, make it very realistic and make it visible to where as they're not going to stop. If they believe it's a real camera, it's less likely that they're going to do. They're tricky for us to use. If we use a dummy camera and we put it at a location and somebody dumps at that location, then the expectation is that we've caught that person. So we have a balance between prevention and enforcement in that regard. So they're a little bit trickier for us to use. And then cell phones. This is one that is a little bit tricky, but just about everybody has cell phones nowadays that has video and camera capabilities, and they're really good quality anymore. So there's a lot of people that are out there, and if you see something going on, it's easy to pop that camera out and start taking some pictures. But what I would be cautious about is really kind of confronting someone that you see illegally dumping by taking a picture. They can get really kind of upset about that. So do so discreetly if you can. Unless you're ready to do that. So I can tell you that people do get upset when people pull out their camera and start filming them. The good thing about these cell phones is, man, they are easy to text or email those images. They don't require any special software. Easy to upload under our website. So we really like them. Another thing about how to install these things. Again, I've already talked a little bit about the covert nature of them. They're often, you're better off with the home stuff as to be as covert as you can. And you need to make them difficult. If options come with making them with a locking mechanism or bolts that you can't reach without undoing a lock, that's what you want to do. Another thing is that you would want to keep in mind is that you would typically want to group them. We tend to group them just due to the fact if somebody's messing with one, we catch it on the other. So we'll know who's doing it potentially. So that's another part of that. Now, locating your camera, realize that the higher that you go on a pole, the less likely you are to get a license tag. That is because if it's a pickup truck, then they're going to have their tailgate down. So that angle is not going to work so well. So keep that in mind. Try to go as low as you can. Lower that you go, the more covert you need to be. And another thing is that you don't want to point it straight at a light. If you're going at a light at night, you tend to get a bunch of glare, and which makes it to where you can't make anything out. So you would want to tend to go from the light to the dumping spot if possible. Prevention tips. And this is probably one of the biggest things that people need to keep in mind. And really, you should try to keep your property well lit and clear of overgrowth and trees and shrubs. You want to have this clear line of sight. People are less likely to dump where they can be seen. And I know a lot of people like their privacy fences, and that's just what they are, privacy fences. But privacy fences is where a lot of people want to stop. Right on the other side of that, they can't be seen. So that's where they dump. So when you have that privacy fence, you're not having a clear line of sight, and you are potentially going to become a victim. Barriers in certain situations where you have and somebody's going through an access point, having a barrier is probably the most effective way to prevent people from dumping on that site. And this is more at other places in a more of a rural suburban area where people go out on the fields and stuff like that. Having that barrier can make a big difference. Monitor your property. You know, the presence of illegal dumping attracts more illegal dumping. You know, you can get, we was talking about hot spots where people tend to pile on all of a sudden. That's kind of what we're talking about. Somebody drives down an alley, they see some stuff there, they think, well, nobody here cares, so I'll just put it on their stuff. It's probably going to get picked up. Nobody cares. So big thing is make sure that you're monitoring your property, going by it often as you can, and or going behind your house, behind your garage as often as you can. Get the stuff up as soon as possible, and that will tend to alleviate some of the dumping or make it less attractive to people because they think you don't care. So that's a big thing. And then installing security cameras is becoming better and better. Send us the photos. We can help catch the people. We're more than happy to do that. And then a lot of people ask for no dumping signs. And do they work? Our signs and markings department has quit making them at the direction, or not at the direction, at the recommendation of the national signs and markings on streets and alleys, because they're actually tend to increase dumping more than they help. So before you do that, it's kind of like catching people's eye, and it's tends to be like that little bit of junk that's sitting out there. It just kind of sometimes it invites people. This must be a place where people illegally dump because they have a no dumping sign. I can tell you that from my experience in doing this for quite some time, the dumping signs are just basically ignored. We've literally had people back in right in front of them. We'll tend to put our camera where you can see that. And you can see they're throwing it off right there underneath of the no dumping sign. So no dumping signs, it's not something that we will install anymore because they're just not very effective. Well, that concludes my presentation. I am going to go ahead and unshare my screen.
Thank you, Pete. I did not have any questions come through on the chat or the Q&A, so we'll just give all the participants that are here. There we go. We'll give everybody a chance. If you have a question, go ahead and type it in. It was very informative, so maybe no questions is a good thing. But otherwise, we will conclude our webinar series, and we appreciate anybody who has attended more. And then we'll upload this video onto our YouTube channel, and it can be, we'll probably post this one on our illegal dumping website, and it'll be available for sharing if you know of anybody who might be interested in the process and those prevention tips. Thanks, everyone, and we'll go ahead and conclude.